Must watch till end for unbelievable performance. The stage lights were already bright, but on that night they felt different. Warmer somehow, as if the America's Got Talent stage itself was holding its breath, waiting for something unforgettable to happen. The audience had settled into their seats, murmurs fading into silence, cameras slowly rolling, judges relaxed yet alert, unaware that they were about to witness a moment that would be talked about for years. When Putri Ariani walked onto the stage, guided calmly and confidently, there was no dramatic entrance, no overdone theatrics, just a quiet presence that immediately commanded respect. Her posture was composed, her face calm. And yet there was something unmistakably powerful in the way she stood there, as if she already knew this moment mattered. The crowd responded with applause, warm and welcoming, but also curious, because stories had already begun to follow her before she even sang a note. She was blind, yes, but that was not the story she carried with her. The real story was in her voice, waiting patiently to be heard. And in that silence just before she began, you could almost feel millions of hearts sinking together. As she introduced herself, her voice was soft but steady, carrying a quiet confidence that surprised many in the room. She spoke about music as if it were not just a passion, but a companion, something that had walked with her through darkness, through uncertainty, through dreams that felt too big for words. The judges listened closely, Simon Cowell leaning slightly forward, his expression neutral yet attentive, a sign he was already invested. When she explained that she could not see, the audience reacted with sympathy. But Putri did not linger there. She redirected the focus gently toward her music, toward what she came to share, rather than what she lacked. That subtle shift changed everything, because it reframed the moment, turning it from a story of limitation into one of purpose. There was no sadness in her tone, only acceptance and strength, which somehow made the anticipation even stronger. The stage felt smaller now, more intimate, as if the massive theater had transformed into a quiet room where only truth was allowed to exist. Then she began to sing, and the first note alone was enough to change the air in the room. Her voice was rich, controlled, emotional and pure, carrying a depth that felt far older than her years. Each lyric flowed naturally, each breath intentional, as if the song was not being performed but remembered, pulled from somewhere deep inside her soul. The audience froze, reactions unfolding slowly, eyes widening, hands moving toward mouths, disbelief spreading from seat to seat. The judges exchanged glances, not speaking because words were unnecessary. At that point, the music said everything. Simon Cowell's face shifted almost imperceptibly, the kind of expression, change that longtime viewers recognize instantly, the moment when skepticism gives way to admiration. As the song built, her voice never wavered. Instead, it grew stronger, filling every corner of the theater with emotion that could not be ignored. And when the final note faded, the silence that followed was heavy, meaningful, and sacred. The applause erupted like a wave crashing all at once, people jumping to their feet, cheering, clapping, some wiping tears without realizing it. The judges stood as well, not out of obligation, but because remaining seated felt impossible. Putri smiled gently, bowing her head slightly, absorbing the sound of appreciation, rather than seeing it, and in that moment, it was clear she felt it deeply. Simon Cowell looked genuinely stunned, not performing for the cameras, not exaggerating, but visibly affected in a way that doesn't happen often. He waited for the applause to settle before speaking, his pause deliberate, his tone softer than usual. He told her that her voice was extraordinary, that it was honest, emotional, and unforgettable, words that carried more weight, coming from someone known for brutal honesty. But what happened next is what truly changed everything. Because Simon did not end the moment there. Instead, he leaned forward again and asked a question no one expected. He asked her to sing another song right there. Right then, something incredibly rare. Something reserved only for performances that feel unfinished because they are too special to end. The audience gasped collectively, a ripple of shock and excitement spreading instantly. Putri paused for a moment, not because she was unsure, but because she understood the magnitude of what was being asked. Singing a second song was not just an opportunity. It was a challenge, an invitation to go even deeper, to reveal even more. She nodded calmly, taking a breath, trusting herself, trusting her voice, trusting the moment. The judges watched closely, knowing they were about to witness something unplanned, something raw, something real. This was no longer just an audition. It was becoming a story unfolding in real time, unpredictable and powerful. As the second song began, the atmosphere shifted again, becoming even more intimate, even more emotionally charged. This time, her voice carried a different kind of weight. Less about introduction, more about connection. As if she was now singing directly to each person in the room. The melody wrapped itself around the audience. Gentle yet firm, comforting yet heartbreaking. A combination that only truly gifted singers can achieve. Simon Cowell's expression softened further. His eyes locked on her, listening not as a judge, but as a human being moved by sound. The other judges appeared equally affected. Hands clasped, breathing slower, fully present in the moment. The audience remained silent, not wanting to disturb even a single note. Because moments like this feel fragile, like they could disappear if interrupted. And as she reached the climax of the song, emotion spilled freely, not forced. Not dramatic, just honest. By the time she finished, there was no hesitation, no pause needed for reaction. The response was immediate and overwhelming. The theater exploded into applause, once again louder. Longer, more emotional than before. People shouted her name, some cried openly. Others simply stood frozen, trying to process what they had just experienced. Simon Cowell stood up slowly, clapping, nodding, clearly aware that he had just witnessed something rare, something beyond technical talent. He spoke again, this time with unmistakable conviction, saying that moments like this are why the show exists, why the stage matters, why music has the power it does. He acknowledged that asking her to sing again was instinct, not strategy, because he simply needed to hear more. And that honesty resonated with everyone watching, because it confirmed what they already felt, that this was not a manufactured television moment. The conversation that followed felt almost secondary, because the emotional peak had already been reached, yet it added depth to the story. Putri spoke humbly, thanking the judges, the audience, and the opportunity, never once positioning herself above anyone else. She talked about music as light, as something that allows her to see the world in a way that goes beyond vision. Her words were simple, but sincerity made them powerful, and they lingered long after she finished speaking. The judges responded with encouragement, admiration, and respect, not patronizing, not exaggerated, just genuine appreciation for her artistry. The audience remained standing, as if sitting down would somehow lessen the significance of what had just happened. It was clear that this audition had crossed the boundary from entertainment into something more meaningful. What made the moment resonate even further was the realization that it was entirely organic. Nothing scripted, nothing forced. Simon Cowell asking for a second song was not planned. It was a reaction, an emotional response that couldn't be suppressed. That authenticity is rare in modern television, where moments are often polished and predictable. Here, though, unpredictability became the magic, reminding viewers why live performance still holds such power. Putri Ariani didn't just sing. She communicated, she connected. She invited millions of people into her world without ever needing them to see it. Her blindness was no longer the defining feature of her story. Her voice was, her courage was, her artistry was, and that shift in narrative mattered deeply because it reframed inspiration in a more respectful, empowering way. As clips of the performance spread across the internet, reactions poured in from around the world, people sharing their emotions, their tears, their admiration. Viewers replayed the moment. Simon asked for the second song, analyzing his expression, the audience reaction, the raw honesty of it all. Musicians praised her control and emotion. Fans praised her courage and humility. And casual viewers simply felt moved, without fully understanding why. That's the mark of true artistry. When explanation becomes unnecessary, because feeling takes over. The audition became more than a viral clip. It became a reminder of why people fall in love with music in the first place. It showed that talent is not just about perfection, but about truth, about vulnerability, about connection. And Putri embodied all of that effortlessly. Long after the lights dimmed and the stage cleared, the impact of that night continued to echo. It lived on in comments and reaction videos, in conversations between strangers who felt connected through a shared emotional experience. People who had never heard her name before now spoke it with admiration, associating it with authenticity and grace. Simon Cowell himself referenced the moment, later acknowledging how rare it is for someone to move him so deeply. That admission carried weight, because it reinforced the idea that even those who have seen it all can still be surprised. The story of that audition became part of AGT history. Not because of spectacle, but because of sincerity. And that distinction is what makes it unforgettable. In the end, what truly mattered was not the applause, not the standing ovations, not even the rare second song request. What mattered was the quiet truth that unfolded in between, the reminder that human connection transcends limitations, expectations, and labels. Putri Ariani walked onto that stage as a contestant, but she walked off as a storyteller, having shared something deeply personal without ever needing to explain it. Her voice carried her story farther than sight ever could, reaching people she would never meet, touching hearts she would never see. And in that sense, the moment was perfect. Not because it was flawless, but because it was real. That is why it stays with us, why we replay it, why we talk about it, and why it continues to inspire long after the final note has faded.